I'm Katie.
And I'm Toby, and we are High Country Women.
Today we're going to walk you through how to make the Esther Tank. We designed the Esther Tank as part of the Esther set, and it is what we would call an elevated basic. It features a facing, which kind of helps the neckline lay flat, and then also has a couple different options. There's both a high neck and a scoop neck option.
In your pattern folder, you will find 3 different options for printing out the pattern. So the first one, and probably the most common, is printing at home on a regular printer or at the library or whatever, on regular paper, printing out all of the pieces and then laying them out. And in our pattern instructions, we do have a layout guide, so you can use that and you'll lay them out, tape them all together before you actually start cutting out the pattern pieces. The second option is sending it into a local print shop and printing on large format paper. So that's an easy option. You do have to pay a small fee per page for that, but it's as easy as sending in the file to the print shop and they get it done for you. And you still have to cut the pieces out, but you don't have to tape anything together. And then the last option is if you are lucky enough to have a projector in your sewing space, then you can just use a projector to project onto your fabric and cut it out that way. And so once you have all of your pattern pieces ready, we're ready to get started. Let's do it. We recommend laying out all of your pattern pieces before you begin cutting to make sure they will all fit. We have fabric cutting layouts in our instructions as a guide. A few things to note before you begin cutting. Every pattern piece has an arrow. Those arrows should be in the direction of the grain line, which runs parallel to the selvage edge. If a pattern piece says to cut on fold, it will have an arrow pointing to the folded edge. You'll want to lay the pattern piece on the fold and not cut that side. When cutting, you want to make sure your pattern piece stays in place. You can either pin the pieces down or use pattern weights. All 4 of the pattern pieces have a black triangle on the folded edge, showing the center. Cut the triangle off so you know where your center is later. Now that you have all your pattern pieces cut out, we're ready to dive into the first step of the instructions. After you've trimmed your facing pieces in step number 1, step number 2 is to serge or zigzag stitch the bottom edges. We'll be using the scoop neck front for this video, and so your pattern pieces might look a little different if you're doing the high neck tank. If you're doing a zigzag stitch, set your machine to a length of 2.5 and a width of 4. If you're sewing the C-cup variation, you'll sew the darts now. Follow the illustrations in our directions. For step number 5, sew the shoulder seams of the shirt front and back right sides together. Press the shoulder seam allowances open. Step number 6. We're now going to do the same thing for the shoulder seams of the front and back facing. Sew together and then press open. Step number 7, we're going to sew the neckline. Placing the right sides of the shirt and the facings together, match and pin the shoulder seams and the center fronts and center backs. Pin all the way around, ensuring the fabric isn't bunching anywhere. Sew around the neckline. Now for step number 8, press the seam allowance towards the facing. If you have a tailor's ham, this could be a useful time to use it, as this can be an awkward part to iron. Understitch the seam allowance to the facing 1/8 inch away from the seam on the wrong side of the fabric. Trim slightly, leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Turn the tank right side out by flipping the facing through the neck hole, then press the facing to lay flat inside the shirt, ensuring that it isn't visible from the right side of the garment. And now for the fun part. If you haven't done the burrito method before, we're going to learn now. Step number 9. With the shirt laying open, right side up, roll the whole length of the shirt, like a burrito, from the left towards the right, stopping when the roll is sitting on top of the right shoulder strap. Step number 10, wrap the underside of the right strap around the roll,
matching the edges right sides together. Pin carefully, not catching any of the rolls in your pins. Stitch the curve of the armhole only. Step number 11. Carefully pull the burrito out through one end so it is right side out. Press, ensuring the facing isn't visible from the right side. Repeat for the other side, rolling from right to left. For step number 12, we're going to understitch the seam allowance to the facing from each side of each armhole as far as you can. This is what it looks like after being sewn. That will be a total of 4 sides. Step number 13. Before we sew up the side seams, flip up the facings and finish the sides with either a serger or a zigzag stitch. Now time to sew the side seams together in step number 14. With the right sides of the shirt fronts together and the facings flipped up, sew the side seams. Press the seam allowance open. In step number 15, flip the facings down and press the side seams at the base of the armhole in place. Step number 16, we're going to use a tight zigzag stitch. Set your machine to a length of 1 and a width of 2. To tack your facing down to the seam allowance on each side, maneuvering your shirt so that your stitch is only going through the facing and the seam allowance layers, not all the way through your shirt front or back. And on to the final step, hemming your shirt. Roll the hem 1 inch and press, then 1 inch again, and press and pin in place. The tank is intended to have a slightly cropped fit, landing around or just above your belly button, but you may want to try the tank on before you hem it to see if that fits your preference. Stitch close to the folded edge. And you're done! Congratulations!